Not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! Open my eyes! Eyes! Ah!
Good horror movies are seamless. They should appear as though they didn't have to try too hard, that it was organically executed without much force. However, a bad horror movie sticks out like a sore thumb, with their need to scare and shock being aggressively apparent. These are the top 5 horror movies that tried too hard. Let's jump in. In at 5 we have Cabin Fever 2016. Now this is a remake that quite literally no one asked for, especially considering that its predecessor came out just 14 years prior to its release, so it all felt very unnecessary. Released in 2016 and directed by Travis Zarowin and written by Eli Roth, this is a remake of Roth's 2002 film of the same name and the 4th installment in the Cabin Fever series. Like the original, the movie follows 5 college friends who head to a remote cabin only to have to face the horrors of a flesh-eating virus. The 2002 Cabin Fever was Eli Roth's gross-out debut, and it truly wowed horror movie lovers, with it paying homage to rural horror conventions. Then when the 2016 movie came along, viewers were nervous simply because it had been just over a decade. Why was a remake being released? Well, it wasn't simply just a remake, no, it was far lazier than that. It is a shot-for-shot remake, with them reusing Eli Roth's original screenplay. It's basically the exact same movie, just with different actors and way more blood and gore. However, the bloody effects were clearly there for the shock factor, with them focusing more on the blood than the plot itself. However, the shock wasn't even really achieved, and instead, all of the fake blood seemed majorly overkill. Now I know many don't trust the word of Rotten Tomatoes, but in this instance, I'm going to credit them. Because as of right now, the Cabin Fever remake holds a 0%, with the general consensus reading, I quote, "No need for a quarantine. Enthusiasm for this inert remake is not contagious." I couldn't have put it better myself. Before we jump into number 4, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, it really helps us out a lot. Coming in at number 4, we have The Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. I don't believe in remakes unless of course you're adding something that was missing from the original, or you are improving on something in a major way. However, a lot of the time remakes happen simply so Hollywood can cash in, and this greatly affects the quality of the overall film. This is exactly what went down with the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Released in 2010 and directed by Samuel Bayer, the movie stars Jackie Earle Haley, Rooney Mara, Katie Cassidy, and Kellen Lutz, and is a remake of Wes Craven's 1984 movie of the same name, with it centering on a group of teens living in Ohio who were stalked and murdered in their dreams by a man named Freddy Krueger. We're all familiar with the story. I mean, they made an entire franchise consisting of 9 movies, so when this 2010 remake came along, no one could quite understand why. It was much darker than the original movie, delving deeper into the evil origins of Freddy Krueger. However, it all felt very unnecessary. Not even its star Rooney Mara could save the movie, and I'm sure this is a film she wishes she hadn't have said yes to, that's for sure. Although to be fair, it was before she became famous. Let's be honest, her claim to fame is Carol. A Nightmare on Elm Street was slammed by critics, with it garnering a 15% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with the general consensus reading, I quote, "Visually faithful but lacking the depth and subversive twists that made the original so memorable. The Nightmare on Elm Street remake lives up to its title in the worst possible way." In at 3 we have The Blair Witch 2016. Why they made more than one Blair Witch movie is beyond me. I know the film industry loves to cash in on successful movies, but the Blair Witch Project was perfect as is, just leave it alone. Sadly, they didn't listen and went on to release multiple sequels. Released in 2016 and directed by Adam Wingard, Blair Witch is the 3rd film in the Blair Witch series and is a direct sequel to the 1999 movie The Blair Witch Project. The film is shot in a similar found footage style as the original and follows a group of college students who venture into the Black Hills Forest in Maryland to uncover the mystery surrounding the disappearance of Heather Donahue, the sister of one of the characters and the female character in the original Blair Witch Project. Now, what made the original film so good was how authentic it felt. The cinematography was uncomfortable, the feel was real, it truly felt like you were watching a home movie. You were watching something you were never supposed to see. The Blair Witch sequel tries desperately to follow in its predecessor's footsteps, following the same beats. However, it falls flat. They rely on jump scares too much that add no quality to the movie, but instead make it feel lazy and unnecessary, unlike the well thought out and calculated creepiness of the original movie. It tries hard to be a carbon copy of the 1999 film, however, this time it has better camera quality. While watching the movie, you can't help but think, why was this movie even made? What was the point? And you will honestly think that same thought right up until the credits. It's a pointless movie, and then Then they try and connect it to the original and it's dumb, and there's time loops and it's dumb. Coming in at number 2 we have The Happening, 2008. Over the years M. Night Shyamalan has marketed himself as the master of the twist. However, The Happening spelled the beginning of the end for this once loved director. Released in 2008 and directed by Shyamalan, The Happening stars Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel, and follows a group of 4 people as they attempt to escape an unexplainable natural disaster that causes people to commit suicide. As you would expect, many viewers were eagerly awaiting the end of this movie for the epic twist that was sure to come. However, the reasoning for the disaster was the trees. Yep, the trees are to blame. Apparently the plant life has developed a defense mechanism against humans, which consists of releasing an airborne toxin that results in humans taking their own lives. Not to mention, like our number 1 spot, the movie somehow managed to turn into one giant meme, particularly with Mark Wahlberg. I mean, just take a look at this.
Plan on murdering me in my sleep?
What? No.
Yep, the entire thing seems like a joke, and that's because it is. On top of that, the movie received scathing reviews, with it currently holding a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the general consensus reading, I quote, "The Happening begins with promise, but unfortunately descends into an incoherent and unconvincing trifle." And I couldn't agree more, this movie truly is a mess. The worst part is that you can see it trying. You can see that it's trying to take itself seriously, however, it completely fails in the process and has since become a laughingstock. Due to this mess, Shyamalan quickly lost all of his credibility and seems to be a director many make fun of now, as we should. And finally, in at number 1 we have The Wicker Man, 2006. I imagine no one is surprised to see this movie taking our number 1 spot, because not only was it an absolute train wreck, but it took itself way too seriously and was never quite in on the joke while we were all laughing. Released in 2006 and directed by Neil LaBute, The Wicker Man stars Nicolas Cage in this remake of the 1973 British horror movie of the same name. The movie itself follows police officer Edward Malice, who ventures to an island where he suspects his ex-fiance's missing daughter might be after she mysteriously disappears. However, once he arrives, he begins to suspect something sinister about the neo-pagans who live on the island. Now, it is important that I mention how good the original 1973 Christopher Lee version of The Wicker Man is, because the 2006 remake is absolutely horrendous, so it's impossible to compare the two. Over the course of the movie, Edward Malice comes to realize that his trip to the island was all set up, and he was intended to be the sacrifice of this pagan cult in order to restore the island's honey production. So Edward is tortured with bees and hoisted inside of a giant wicker man, and of course, the torches are lit. It's iconic at this point, just truly terrible. The movie somehow became an unintentional comedy, with many horror movie lovers quoting this train wreck for years to come. Even if you haven't seen the 2006 Wicker Man, you have likely heard the quote, "The bees, not the bees." More unfortunate still, Nicolas Cage is genuinely a good actor, but in this movie he seems to become a parody of himself, with many feeling he lost credibility following this movie. He seems so far away from Moonstruck days. Yes, I just needed to reference a Cher movie once on this list, because I like to talk about Cher at least once a day, and I haven't spoken about it yet. Ultimately, this 2006 remake tried way too hard to reach the highs that its predecessor did, however it completely bombed in the process. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? Were there any horror movies that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 2. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 sci-fi horror movies we still don't understand. Edward Sebester said, "The movie Pi is very straightforward. It is a straightforward use of the Platonic theory of mathematics, rather than a formalist concept of mathematics. If you are poor at math, you are not likely to comprehend it at all." Well, thank you, there were shots fired there. I'm clearly not good at maths. I've stated it before, many times. I failed math twice. I still barely passed. I passed with 49.5 and they rounded up because they felt bad for me. So yes, I don't understand pi because I don't understand math, so leave me alone. Tony Vanelli said, "I like Lucy, but her eyes are very distracting. For one, they look amazing, but two, she looks like she is staring at something above and to her left of the camera the entire time. I could be staring at the teleprompter, which we have to read because I can't remember things, and also I can see myself, so oftentimes I look at myself. It's a fact. If you see yourself, you want to look at yourself." I noticed it along Central Dark where I'm just like, it looks so stupid. Michael Haas said, "Lucy is the greatest mystery we can never understand." No, you'll never understand me. I will never understand me. I don't make much sense. Jeremy Blackwater said, "Hi Lucy." Hi. Blue Neptune said, "It's so funny to watch a modern Brit try to understand 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's like watching a mouse understand an airplane. In 10 years you will all be brown and lose the ability to pronounce sounds." I can't. I can't quite fathom what you're trying to say, but I know there's an insult about me being British in there. Which I got. That part I got. And the fact that I can't understand 2001: A Space Odyssey is like a mouse trying to understand an airplane. I understand most of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm saying most people don't understand it. The ending doesn't make sense. Come on. There's a baby in space. What does that mean? Kathy Papa said, even just watching the short clips here, I don't think I'd like any of these. Life's confusing enough, don't need to add more. You don't have to watch them. Some of them are good. Under the Skin is a genuinely good movie. I would watch that. Just skip the rest. Skip Pi, most of all. That's not even an enjoyable movie because math isn't enjoyable. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. And until next time, I'll see you later.